Seconds away on Studio 5, the untold story of an acting legend. One of the surprises for me in reading the book was the Billy Graham connection. Was that a surprise to you? Get your first look at Steve McQueen, an American icon. And then,
come on, quit resisting you.
Where are we going?
Like a mule.
We're pulling the blinders off with a sneak peek at the final season of TV's Mary Mary. Plus, two strangers and one incredible journey.
It was an explosion, and she was badly injured.
Kate Winslet and Idris Elba have a look at their new film in Studio 5, starting now. And welcome to Studio 5. Those stories and much more are ahead. But before we get to those, let's dive into this week's countdown of the best in uplifting entertainment news. At number 5.
Can I ask you about your relationship to your faith and the church growing up? You said that singing is praying twice.
Chance the Rapper shares thoughts on his Christianity with Late Show host Stephen Colbert.
It's always great to pray. And when you worship in song, there's just, I don't know, this, you're able to do it with much more fervor, or at least I am.
Chance told Colbert This Is the Day is his favorite hymn. And then he shared some new music written just days before.
The day is on its way, it couldn't wait no more. Here it comes. Here it comes. Ready or not. Ready or not.
At number 4.
Hey, Mark.
Troubles may come.
Troubles may come.
With production wrapped for the new film A Question of Faith, this is premiere week. And Studio 5 is in Atlanta, catching up with the film's star, Kim Fields, on the red carpet.
She's a dedicated wife and mother who loves the Lord, who has, certainly been riddled with challenges, and so that certainly is a lot of me. And I've been through phases of my own life where I've questioned my faith or questioned God.
A Question of Faith is in American theaters Friday. And those are the first two headlines in this week's countdown. We'll get to number 3 in just a bit. Nearly 40 years after his death, movie star Steve McQueen is still often referred to as the King of Cool. His rags to riches life story still fascinates many of us, but few people know about one very important chapter of that story. Take a look at the Hollywood bad boy's journey to faith with a little help from Greg Laurie, whose documentary on McQueen hits American theaters this week. Laurie is this week's Studio 5 interview.
He ain't gonna put out $194 on a lousy pair. You did.
Movies, motorcycles, and model-like style paint a pretty picture of Steve McQueen. But the King of Cool overcame a lot to become the Hollywood boy wonder of the 60s and 70s.
He had no father, and his mother really did not raise him.
Alcoholic.
She was a raging alcoholic with a lot of guys. And I tracked with that part of his story because I, too, had an alcoholic mother, married and divorced 7 times, and I never knew my biological father.
Only the gospel can change a human heart.
In addition to leading California's Harvest Christian Fellowship Church, Greg Laurie is quite the Steve McQueen fan.
Maybe I should first state that I have a Bullitt Mustang. And if people, you know what that is, right?
I do.
Well, for those people that don't know what that is, there was a film that McQueen made a number of years ago in the 60s called Bullitt. And he plays a detective named Frank Bullitt. And he drives this green 1968 Mustang. Pretty much the greatest cinematic car chase in history was in that film. So I have a replica of that car. So I bought that car. My wife wasn't that thrilled with this idea.
Steve McQueen's resume by Hollywood standards today could be considered relatively short, but he is an American icon. Why do you think we're so fascinated with him?
Yeah, I don't know the answer. Not everybody from his generation is an icon. But James Dean, another contemporary of McQueen, is an icon. Elvis is an icon. The Beatles are iconic. Certain people transcend time and they become iconic characters. I think maybe one of the things that makes a person an icon is when there's sort of a timelessness about them. In other words, when new generations can discover them. I actually read this article in a men's fashion magazine, and you're a very fashionable guy, by the way, Ephraim. But and it asked the question, who was cooler, Steve McQueen or James Dean? And they were examining their life on the basis of the cool cars they drove. And they both drove cool cars. The movies they made, and kind of their fashion sense. And the conclusion was McQueen was cooler than Dean.
Well, I don't know about taking any more orders, but I'd sure like to get up in the pulpit, sound off with all those sergeants out in the congregation. I'd sure give them hellfire and brimstone.
Beyond his style points and his car, there's an even bigger McQueen story Lori spent time chasing.
I started delving into Steve's life more, and I'd heard that he'd become a Christian, and I believed it to be true, but I never had checked it out. Well, I'd seen a documentary film last year, and it talked about his rise from, the worst childhood imaginable to superstardom, where he was the #1 movie star in the world, in films like Bullet, The Great Escape, The Magnificent Seven, The Thomas Crown Affair, etc. And then how he walked away from Hollywood and became a Christian. I thought, well, is this true? So I started with a Google search, and I started reading old articles, and a name popped up, Leonard DeWitt. Leonard was the pastor who led Steve to Christ, and I thought, well, I wonder if this guy's alive still. So we tracked him down, and I said, are you the Leonard DeWitt that prayed with Steve McQueen? And he said, yes, I am. I was amazed that Leonard didn't have like a website, The Preacher Who Led McQueen to Christ. I mean, that's kind of an accomplishment.
Lori shares the details of the meeting between DeWitt and McQueen in his book, The Salvation of an American Icon. One of the surprises for me in reading the book was the Billy Graham connection. Yeah. Was that a surprise to you?
No, I knew that story, but I didn't know the details of it. I did ask Billy about this years ago. He, of course, confirmed the story was true.
The story? Doctors diagnosed McQueen with an aggressive cancer mere months after he accepted Christ. Before he flew to Mexico for surgery, he met Billy Graham, and Graham gave McQueen his Bible.
Steve went down, had the surgery done. After they wheeled him into recovery, he was waiting in this room alone at a clinic in Juarez, Mexico, and he died. And he went into the presence of God. They came in to find Steve, and they pulled the sheet back, and he was holding on to that Bible. It was indeed Billy Graham's Bible he was holding on to, maybe reading it before the Lord called him home. And one thing Steve said before he died was, my only regret in life is that I was not able to tell people about what Christ did for me. So I wrote a book that's out now, and I'm doing this documentary film because I wanted to right that wrong. I think that is a story worth telling. And to me, the takeaway truth of it for people watching us right now is there's no one who's beyond the reach of God. You might say, well, I know someone, they would never come to Jesus. What about Steve McQueen? Steve McQueen, Mr. Cool, the king of cool, realized he needed Christ. So the king of cool met the King of Kings.
Steve McQueen, an American icon, hits theaters in the U.S. for one night only, Thursday, September 28th. And still ahead on Studio 5. The chart-topping sister duo, Mary Mary, serves up the scoop on the final season of their hit reality TV series. And welcome back to Studio 5. We are continuing our countdown of the best and uplifting entertainment news, and it's time now for number 3. At number 3.
I became a beggar. I became a street boy. I walked to the city of Nairobi to get my new life.
And you go from being a beggar to a millionaire. The big screen will see the real-life story of a man who walked away from millions to become a father to thousands.
Sometimes it's so hard for me to measure at that level, but I can acknowledge and say, yes, Lord really lifted me so high through His favor, through the small business that I started.
Small business.
Yeah, small business that I started.
Mully is in theaters for 3 days beginning Tuesday, October 3rd.
I was really tormented by these boys in the street. I saw faces of me and I could not walk anymore. I cried, why is it that God wants me to take me back again? I will never, ever work for money again.
At number 2.
Mr. Spell, I'm Thurgood Marshall with the NAACP. You heard of us?
The life of Supreme Court Justice Thurgood Marshall is coming to a theater near you in a courtroom thriller based on his life. Chadwick Boseman plays the title role of Marshall, and rising star Sterling K. Brown plays Joseph Spell, a man on trial for rape and attempted murder. The People versus O.J., This Is Us, you seem to be riding a beautiful wave right now. Where does this film for you fit in that wonderful wave you're riding?
You know, this is the first film that I've done since O.J. and This Is Us. So it's sort of a new foray for me from the small screen to the big screen. And it's exciting. You a lawyer?
I am. This is Sam Friedman. He's a lawyer, too.
Hey, you can go. Got no money for lawyers.
And with that, there is only one more headline in our countdown of the best in uplifting entertainment news. The amazing voices of Erica and Tina Campbell combined to create the chart-topping duo Mary Mary. This week, the sisters returned to television for the final season of their hit docuseries. Erica and Tina are joining us right here in Studio 5 in a moment. But first, here's a sneak peek at why Season 6 of Mary Mary is one to watch.
Wait, hold on. Can you hear this?
Fabric walls.
We're in the studio. Take them off.
We're in the studio. Oh man, the old studio, the original studio at Warren's parents' house. This is great. Listen, where it all went down. Wow.
We haven't worked in this room in 14 years.
14?
Yeah.
Wow. Wow, it's been a minute since we've been in the studio. I remember recording albums from 10 o'clock at night till 6 o'clock in the morning. No kids, no husbands, just excited and young and enthusiastic and ambitious. I guess it has been a long time since we made an album.
Really, for real though, I brought y'all here because I just wanted y'all to remember just kind of where we came from, how this all started.
And that was a scene from the final season of Mary Mary. And joining us now are the stars, Erica and Tina Campbell. So good to have you both. So, is there drama this season?
I'd like to say life happens.
I'd like to say that, yeah, life happens.
But as you see, we're here together and we're smiling and we're good.
Yeah, man.
How are you both feeling knowing that this is the end of this chapter?
This being the end, and this being the end is actually, it was actually, you know, a joint decision. We've shown a lot of our lives, and what we realize about reality TV is after you're living your life the way you live it, and there's certain parts of your life that are constant, it's almost like it gets old, you know, and so it's like, let me give them the best of me, let me give them all of the evolution of me, of us together, of us individually, all the layers, and let's leave out on a bang. Because
on a high note.
Before it gets uninteresting, let's leave out on a high note, and I think that's what we've decided to do this time.
Absolutely.
Now, I understand for this season, you guys are kind of even in the midst of terror threats. Can you explain?
Well, during, I don't know if, I'm sure you know, Ariana Grande's concert, there was an explosion and a lot of young people died.
22 kids.
22 young people. Well, we had a concert in Manchester.
And so we
didn't,
week later.
Yeah, so we didn't know if they were going to cancel it, you know, or how our families would feel about us going, if it would be safe. And you see how all that unfolds on the shows. It was quite scary knowing that something like that happened and we are going there, but we are people of faith, so we have a responsibility to bring the good news.
And there were terrorist acts while we were in the UK. There were terrorist acts that were happening at the same time. And so these are the kinds of things that we have to navigate. We have to stay strong in our faith and continue to go out and inspire.
And make the decision, do I stay home?
Absolutely.
Or do I go out and tell people that we serve a real God that can help heal and restore and put the pieces back together even after devastation in your life?
And then you have to also make sure your husbands are okay with you going over there, you know, to be inspirational in the middle of a terrorist act. And so you see us navigating all of that on season 6.
That's one of the things I love about all the seasons is that, number one, you guys are believers, and allowing the world to see that we as people of faith have we go through things just like anybody else. What will you miss about sharing that with people?
You know what? We won't stop sharing that. I have a web series. Erica's on radio every day. We have countless other platforms where we continue to share. I know that we'll be in TV again. I'm not sure if we'll be in it this way. So we won't ever stop sharing our faith. That's the one thing that we will never stop doing. We've shared it with countless outlets before we came to WeTV. Thank God for this opportunity to share our lives and share our faith. But everywhere we go, with every platform that we're on, no matter what network we're with, we will absolutely share our faith. That is who we are. That is our lives. There's no way to be us without sharing our faith. So we'll continue to do that everywhere we go, through the music, collectively, individually.
Yeah, and the cool thing for us, this show will serve as like a really cool set of home videos. Right. Well lit and well edited with great camera guys following us around, having babies and all that stuff.
Right.
So it's amazing to have been able to do this.
We'll be tuning in to check out the family stuff, all the crazy stuff. We're like, okay, they done edited that and made it a little special. But to be able to watch our kids grow up, my son is about to be 8 years old, was like 1 or 2. You know, my son that was a thought, or that wasn't a thought, is now 5. You know,
we both had babies during this
so it's
chapter of our lives.
So it's wonderful to have had this journey with all of you watching, but it's time for us to graduate. So we're hoping that everybody will see the culminating season and enjoy it and go out with a bang, and maybe somebody else will come in and do it after us.
Well, thank you both, Erica and Tina Campbell. Love you, love your music, love your life. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Still to come. The mountain between us takes 2 strangers on one incredible journey.
I'd never done anything, even really close to this.
The stars, Kate Winslet and Idris Elba, are in Studio 5 with your first look. And welcome back to Studio 5. It's time now for this week's #1 headline in the countdown of the best of uplifting entertainment news. At #1.
But Steve had misplaced his Bible.
I don't know where Steve had put his Bible, but he had just shared with Billy that he wished he had a Bible. And without any hesitation, Billy said, "I'll give you mine."
Pastor Greg Laurie's documentary on the life and faith of acting legend Steve McQueen is in American theaters for one night this week. It includes interviews with Steve's widow and unheard recordings from McQueen himself. Had you heard those audio recordings before?
Some of them I was sitting there, but some of it's been so long ago. No, I don't. This is the part of the movie that I have to walk out on because it just brings back way too many bad memories for me. We were going to move and build our home in Idaho. I had the ranch and I finally built a home on there. I wanted a family and I wanted a real life and I wanted to grow old in a rocking chair. We had our rocking chairs picked out and just, oh boy, I'm going to start bawling. I'm sorry. You're fine. It was, I wanted a life with him.
Well, that wraps the countdown and brings us to our next story. Idris Elba and Kate Winslet pair for a suspenseful drama. The Mountain Between Us is the story of 2 strangers forced to depend on one another to survive following a plane crash. Here's your Studio 5 first look.
Anyone?
After reading it, I felt like this is the movie I want to do.
Action!
Hi, Alex.
The idea of 2 human beings surviving up in the mountains. They don't know each other, and the only way to survive, to trust each other while they don't know each other.
I loved this idea that these 2 characters would sustain an entire film from start to finish. I found that really interesting. I'd never read a script like that before. I was halfway through an assignment. There was this one girl, she told me all about this boy. She liked him. Then there was an explosion and she was badly injured. Took her picture. They definitely clash over their strategic maneuvers throughout the story. But those are the things that bring them together. They have to obviously work together. They have to get through those differences.
I want you to take a picture of me. I'm gonna die. I want this to be my very last picture.
My character has gone through a lot. His personal life is in turmoil when we meet him, and becomes ever more complicated on this mountain.
I can't take your picture. I'm sorry.
I'm not gonna die. Not today.
It's intriguing to have someone like this character who has no sort of survival instincts, if you like, and suddenly is thrown into quite an extreme scenario.
Come on, go.
I'd never done anything, even really close to this in terms of altitude. Running at altitude is absolute agony. Agony makes your chest burn.
We want to make it back.
What we wanted was to tell an honest story.
It's about the power of love and about the will of survive.
You can go 3 weeks without food, 3 days without water, and 3 hours without shelter.
We might die together, and I don't even know you.
The spirit of human beings can do a lot, can survive, be able to love, be able to sacrifice himself. I hope audience will be inspired in a good way, whether to become a good husband or a good daughter or a good teacher or better human being.
And you can catch The Mountain Between Us in American theaters beginning October 6th. And still ahead on Studio 5.
There was kind of a peace that came over him, and I think he was much happier.
The wife of acting legend Steve McQueen shares the power of his faith. We are back in Studio 5 and almost out of time for this edition of the show. But before we go any further, in this show, let's take a look ahead to what we're working on for you next week.
God bless Mummy. God bless Daddy. God bless Nu. Amen.
Forgotten someone?
Who?
Keep thinking.
Me. I forgot to bless me. God bless me.
She is one of the hottest talents on the planet, Margot Robbie.
So I play Daphne Milne, A.A. Milne's wife, and the mother of little Christopher Robin.
It's the very dapper Will Tilston.
It really is a beautiful story, though, and it's about his childhood and how he sort of sacrificed to make other childhoods better.
The creatures in the story are toys. They're toys, but the woods are real, and the size is wrong. The bear should be smaller, size of a little brother. There. Yes. Yes, that's it.
Blue, are we writing a book? I thought we were just having fun.
We're writing a book and we're having fun.
And that's just one story from next week's rundown. I hope you'll join us for that. As for the final word for this show, I'd like to end where we began with a look at the King of Cool, Steve McQueen, this time through the eyes of his widow, Barbara Minty McQueen.
He was just a normal guy, but we had a little more crazy fun than normal. I mean, we never really sat a lot until he learned to fly, and then we spent a lot of time in Santa Paula because he was so much, I mean, he just took the character of a pilot on. His faith was very personal to him. He kept it, he was very curious, very strong about it, and it was something that he kept. It was, I mean, it was good for him, it was his, and nobody could touch it. But we went to church every Sunday, and I had a lot of dresses. There was kind of a peace that came over him, and I think he was much happier because he'd found something that worked for him. I don't even know how to explain it, but it just really, it worked for him. He could wrap his head around it. It took him a while, but he got her done.
Thanks so much, Barbara. The King of Cool met the King of Kings and became an even greater man. Not because of anything he'd done, but because he had a relationship with his Heavenly Father. That is the final word for this edition of Studio 5. Until next time, reach out and touch me at Ephraim Graham on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and Snapchat. And then you come on back and see where Studio 5 takes you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.